In November 2014, I was still living 30 minutes away with the family, and every few days I would call Dad and just check up on him and say hello, and I knew his routine and everything. And he didn't answer the phone for the landline for a couple of days there, and it was very unlike him because I know he'd be home at those times. I walked in to see him in a big pile of his own mess. I had to call the ambulance to get assistance to help me lift him up, and from there they recommended contacting Vital Call, so emergency response necklace should he have another fall in the future. Within the next fortnight he had another fall. I then made the decision to move back home and be his carer. And over the coming months, we saw neurosurgeons, cardiologists, nurses, GPs, all sorts, getting different opinions to work out what was causing this. Eventually, a neurosurgeon said he had hydrocephalitis, which is basically a build-up of fluid in the brain, which then affects your cognitive function and ability. I had to make the decision to have an operation to put a brain shunt, effectively like a reservoir in his brain, to drain the fluid through his stomach to help improve things like he was incontinent and mobility and also cognitive functions, etc. There was a big list, and we did that, and they basically said that this operation sort of had a 4-year lifespan, but it can be less. We did find out later it was less. His movement started to deteriorate around the house again, and before you know it, even though we had home modifications and OTs and all that, he then had I think 2 or 3 big falls again within a 3-week period, where we had the ambulance here and had to get stretchered to hospital. And basically, for me it was like the last time he'd ever see home, because they pretty much told me that he'd never walk again. The recommendation was, including all the doctors and specialists, saying that he needs to get into a nursing home, because the idea of him coming home and the issues of him being wheelchair bound for the rest of his life, combined with the hydrocephalitis and a whole bunch of other issues, it would be too burdensome on all the family. That was a decision that we made at the time with a lot of pressure, but in hindsight, I certainly would have took a lot more time with that decision and make it a more informed decision instead of being pressured about availabilities of bed spots at nursing home, when quite frankly we 2 years later we come up with a suggestion that we could have implemented in 2017 rather than 2019, and that was to bring him home.
Me and Dad were just discussing one night, because I was here visiting, because at the time I was living abroad, and Dad said, "You know what, if you come home, how about you look after me? You can do it." I just sat there for a moment and thought about it like I am now, and epiphany came to me: I can do that. I've just had a young baby. I want him to come to Australia. I want him to grow up here, and I want him to be around my family. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. So I've decided to come home and work it out and bring my father home. And that was over in 2019. So as a family, we all decided together to bring him home.
Do you want me to do it?
No, I'm fine. I just want to explain it properly so they understand why you don't put somebody in a nursing home.
I visited Dad at least weekly, sometimes with my girls after when I pick them up from school, and and visit Dad. And I saw a lot of deterioration, a lot of neglect, a high staff turnover. There's not much care factor, to be honest with you, but also sometimes I'd go there for 30 minutes and he might say one word because he's a space cadet. He was you didn't know. He just sat there, and unfortunately he had memories of in 2012 when Grandma, his dad, his mum, passed away there. The reason he went to this particular nursing home is because his auntie, our Auntie Una, was also currently there at the time. So it was kind of like what you're familiar with, but even what you're familiar with doesn't mean it's the right environment, because when you lose hope, don't worry about how you are physically or you're not going to improve. You literally haven't got much to live for, because he couldn't move. He was in a wheelchair and needed to be, two people with hoists had to move around. So he definitely deteriorated. There was no physio. I think they said they cancelled the once a week after 3 months.
All these things we figured out as we went. But the main important thing was we knew it was the right thing to do. And Josh always said to me, he's like, even if you do it for 3 months' time, 6 months, whatever you can do it for, you're still doing it and giving him a shot. And you won't regret anything. So if you can do it for 3 months, at least he had a better 3 months. Later on I found out from Dad, and me and him have gotten closer over the time, staying at home, speaking with him more often, as I'd been away for so long. And he had told me he only thought he had a year left there. He was ready. He didn't want to be waiting there anymore. His time was done, so it was lucky we brought him home. And there's nothing better than seeing him now with my son and them all being together as a family unit and watching them grow together. Because I tell you what, Dad has went tenfold in comparison to the 2 years he had in that home compared to the 2 years he has here now.
And tenfold's an understatement. I remember when we checked him out, and sure enough, when you check out of a hotel type experience, they don't care anything about you in terms of, wrapping up things or finalising clothing. It's just on you, it's business to them. And they actually made the comment that you won't last a month,
Later on, through the funding and with the help of my brother, we were able to find out what we could actually get for our dad to make, his life easier, but also the people who care for him's life easier. Because that's the important thing here. It's the whole family unit. Because if it's hard for one of them, it's hard for everyone. So you need to make it work as a whole.
And if you share the load, it's not hard for anyone. It's actually quite enjoyable and easy once you set all the things up. Initially, the hoist, he doesn't need a hoist anymore. He hadn't walked in 4 or 5 years. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but now he can walk. You know what I mean? Because he's lost 17 kilos, and Ty's been instrumental in implementing a physio type program.
During that time that I was home for the 2 weeks and I helped Joshua move out, the memories that we hear that Dad wanted to come home, it just made me come to the realisation that family is that important. The man who looked after me, cleaned me, showered me, was in this nursing home, and he just needed the care that he had given me when I was a kid. So it was my right to come home and look after him. And if I could do that and raise my family and be involved together, then why wouldn't you take that opportunity?
It's good.
Sorry.
You're giving your family member hope, and you've probably just extended their life another 10 to 15 years. And we saw that with our grandma when she died 99 in 2012. When we were younger, we lived with her, and everyone said that. And now Dad's here, with his grandchildren, loving life, and he's got hope back. Before he had no hope, he had nothing to live for, Now he's got hope. He sees his family every day. His birthdays, Christmases at home. We've just extended his life for a long time, and there's nothing more rewarding than that.